Hi, Mylene. How are you doing today?
Hi, Justin. Hi, everyone. And I'm doing great in sunny Philippines. And welcome to all. And what we say in the Philippines is mabuhay, which means long life.
Mabuhay.
And
Okay, I'll have to
hello.
remember that.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the podcast here. I know that you are, a really big leader in the edtech space, and I see that you have the FELTA multimedia logo behind you. So that just really shows, how passionate you are about your company. First of all, I just really wanted you to explain a bit more about yourself for those people listening or watching who maybe don't know much about you. Can you tell them what you're currently working on?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Mylene Abiva, President and CEO of FELTA Multimedia. As you can see from my background, we're a 56-year-old company, turning 56 this year. And I'm happy to say that I was appointed President and CEO in the year 2000. We are a second generation company. I am what you call a COO, or it stands for Child of Owner. Well, my parents set up the company, and I'm pleased to say that through my directives, I did work in the United States for a while, a few years, and I repatriated back in the Philippines to help my parents run the business. And with that, I brought in all these technologies. At first, in the 80s, we started with modernizing our educational system by providing science equipment and furniture for schools and audiovisual equipment and materials. And then now we are a robotics partner of Cognition Robotics for the Virtual Robotics Toolkit, and also the Lego Education National Partner Organizer, and an Intel Education Gold Partner, and as well as the Microsoft Global Training Partner. So we've got all our bases covered, right?
Yeah,
Yes, so
yeah.
these are
Thank you for
all our
clarifying.
global partners, yes.
Yeah, yeah. You are really busy with all that stuff. You mentioned that Felta is, I guess, turning 56 this year. Is that right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah, well, that's
yes.
that's really impressive, and I had a question about that. I was curious, leading a company that is 56 years old, how do you manage to stay true to your parents' values? They founded the company. How do you manage to stay true to the values while continuing to innovate and lead your own path?
Well, it has to be every time you wake up in the morning, what is it you're passionate about? It is about the educators, the learners who are, and even the parents right now with the homeschooling and the remote learning mode. And it really actually fuels us to innovate, innovate, and innovate. In fact, in 2017, would you believe a 50-something-year-old company like us beat all the online companies here in the Philippines, winning the Asia CEO Awards for Innovation, the most innovative company award. So I think it's a testament of how we're moving. Technology is always fast moving. It's always new and exciting. And I think it's the one that fuels us. And especially for me, I always want to be 10 steps ahead of technology. I am fearless. I'm a fearless entrepreneur. You might probably know that in how we are able to pivot and digital world with its what's going on right now, the situation globally with the pandemic. And I believe that we also have a great team. We have a passionate and dedicated team, with even with no face-to-face trainings, we are still managed to be able to conduct webinars, free webinars, to help the teachers, the educators to transition to the remote learning mode for free. And this we've done all throughout the year 2020 until today. And I believe that is really when you serve the education space or the people in that education space, I think it relates to how you run the business. So that is how true we are. As we say, we modernize education.
Yeah, yeah, you're definitely staying true to your motto there. That's great. I was really also wondering, you've dubbed yourself as a champion of the geeks, and I thought this was really funny, and and I also wanted to learn more. Tell listeners, what does that title mean to you, and why do you choose to brand yourself as that specifically?
Right. Thank you so much, Justin, for asking that question because, going back, I know that you have watched my TEDx talk. I struggled in physics. I was in an honors section, with all these smart girls. I went to school in an all-girls Catholic school. And well, I particularly struggled in physics. And I said there should be a way for us to teach physics in a more engaging, interactive way and a more fun way that you don't have to have anxious, you don't have those panic attacks or anxieties when you go inside the class or when the teacher comes in. So going back to your question about being the champion of the geeks. I always believed when I first started the robotics program here in the Philippines, oh my goodness, you probably weren't even born yet, 1999. That was a long time ago, some 21 years ago. I had to struggle because another challenge was teachers only thought that robotics is about the movies, right? Oh my gosh, I'll be dated. Voltus 5, you probably don't know that. Transformers. So these are the only connection that teachers had with the robotics. Now, talking about being the champion of the geeks is that as I was growing up, as a woman, as a girl, and as a woman right now, in our culture, if you are smart, the boys get intimidated. Oh, she's too smart. Yeah, I can't keep up, So I really had to tell my story, especially to the parents, that if you have a daughter who's smart, even a boy, a son who's smart, give them the opportunity to shine. And the way to shine is through these robotics competitions and through these robotics programs. So every time I talk to parents and during the PTA, the meetings, I would say, if you have a daughter or a son who's inclined in STEM or science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, go and support your child, because that's the future. And look at where we are now. It's all these STEM, all these graduates in STEM are the ones thriving. So again, I am proud to be a Filipina champion of the geeks, because I am actually changing the mindset and the culture of parents to look at being a woman, a girl, to be in STEM. So my advocacy right now is women in technology, to try to encourage more girls and particularly young women to take up a course in college in technology, as well as to even set up an incubator in tech. So we have to, populate the tribe, populate the tribe of women in technology. So
Yeah.
that's my story.
Well, yeah, thank you for explaining that. It's certainly important what you're doing. I mean, people likely look to you as a figurehead for, the woman in STEM. And there's just, yeah, you're right, not enough women and girls in STEM. And it's a shame that it's not seen as a more inclusive space. But I think that it is moving in that direction. And I hope, at least in my lifetime, we see, further progress being made. You've talked about how parents should support their kids who are interested in STEM to encourage them and push them towards that. What's the best way that a parent or parents could support them, and what do you think they should be doing more of?
Right. Well, thank you so much, because I also, when I give talks and there are parents in the audience, I tell them, if your daughter wants to play with Lego, for example, I never played with Lego when I was growing up. I was given a Barbie doll. You're only playing with dolls. You can only play with dolls. That is the generation. So if your daughter or even your son wants to, for example, play with robots or anything that has to do with engaging or interactive science experiments, support your child. And also remove the mindset that, for example, as again, going back to our culture in the Philippines, girls are only for the services industry. What are those? So you're in the tourism industry, you work in a hotel, you work in a BPO. BPO means the call centers. So that's only what we're good for. But if I am technically inclined, if my parents say, okay, go ahead and maybe take this test and probably even get a scholarship and be a scientist, be a doctor, it all is really boiled down into encouraging the person to the child to achieve the best or achieve the best person that he or she can be. So it's really more about being having the opportunity to meet all the your full potential. To get that full potential, I think that's all we're, that's, life is too short. So if you don't live your life and exceed and achieve your full potential, then you lose out, right?
Right.
So to all the parents, really encourage your children, if they're even inclined or inclined into STEM, give them all the, the support. Who knows?
That's a
They'll be
great
the next
message.
Nobel Prize winner. To be the
Exactly.
next scientist to invent all the solutions of the future. It all boils
Exactly.
down in the family. Yeah, the family
Yeah.
culture and support.
Yeah, I think I'm too late to become the next Nobel Prize winner. I don't see myself accomplishing that anytime soon. But yeah, no, let's push all these kids in that direction. I think, yeah, the younger the better. You kind of mentioned this already, but if a kid is grappling with physics or, a different topic, whether it be science or engineering or whatever it is, what do you think that they can do? Not just the parent, but what can the student themselves do to take that next step into improving and bettering their situation? Similar to what you were faced with at a very young age, like how can they accomplish more in that space?
Yes, I'd like also to tell a story that while I was growing up, you only memorized if you're learning science or even mathematics, right? During my time, you memorize what? Formulas. So it has become a memory work. Yeah, even I think some of the schools, the traditional schools do it today. Now we have to humanize schools. Now we need to humanize the way parents teach, even now in the home learning modality, is that encourage your children to be curious, to probably go into safe sites in the internet that they can do experiments and engage with other children. Even robotics, for example, is a way to engage and make them more of critical thinkers, which we really need right now, which is really the basis of science, isn't it? So it's really providing them the resources. Maybe you don't have to spend, a fortune for these resources. There are a lot of free resources available right now. So yes, again, provide the resources, and again, as I said, always support and encourage. Don't belittle them if they make mistakes, because mistakes is actually learning, isn't it? So experiments, and then we need to humanize the way we teach both at home and in school. And another thing that I'd like to mention probably is what we call the inquiry science-based education, or ISPE. And that's the reason why robotics is so crucial right now while we're teaching it, even as part of physics or part of even the science programs, because it really makes you think, and it really makes you more inquisitive and tells you what the solutions are to the problems of probably not just your experiment. Maybe you'll invent something, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's wonderful.
Mhm.
I really like that answer. Um, you've also talked about how when you were starting FELTA, or actually when you were first getting involved, you digitized a lot of the operations. You were involved with innovating, and you made a lot of changes that have made it the company that it is today. What do you think now that we're, I guess however many years ahead in 2021, what's the next innovation that you think the company or companies in general are going to have to make? I mean, prior to this, it was maybe just putting from paper into the computer, digitizing all of those records. But what's the next step after that?
Oh, well, I can share some that's not on NDA because I do have an NDA with some of the
Oh,
developers.
okay.
Yeah. But okay, let me just be general, because after this call, I'm actually meeting with the Department of Information and Communication Technology, the head. And
Oh,
we're actually going to be talking about emerging technologies, which we can apply both in education and in other areas of the Philippines, say for security or for women livelihood. What we're talking at the moment would be the future will be probably holograms. And you now have, of course, the virtual reality products are being developed, and the content, simulation, 3D content. So to make all our interactions, specifically, as I said, teaching science, to be more engaging and more interesting. So basically, that's where we're heading.
Nice,
into
nice.
the Star Trek. That we're going to the Star Trek era.
It sounds very futuristic, but really it's right here. It's right here in front of us. Yeah. I mean, I remember even when I was like a kid, I couldn't really imagine touch screens. Like I was around, when it was still buttons. And so I thought that touch screens were so futuristic, and then now they're here, and it's crazy to think that, what's going to be next, right?
Mhm.
I wanted to get more into your work with virtual robotics and the competitions as well. I know that not a like you've had a lot of impact, of people around the world who are involved with these types of competitions. But for people who don't know, explain more about your work with robot virtual games and similar types of technology.
Yes. Well, I'm proud to say that at the onset of the pandemic, which is about March of last year, we were the first country other than Canada to roll out the robot virtual toolkits. And this really worked out because we found out that the children really, because they're so anxious of what's going to be ahead in the future, since they know that their schools will be closed, we had a lot of participation from homeschoolers. We all started from homeschoolers because the traditional kids from the traditional schools still were quite iffy yet on what it's all about. So we started training a few homeschoolers. I believe we had a couple of students from the Chinese school. So we got them to train with us, of course, for free, definitely. And then in April 30 of 2020, we organized the Philippine Robotics Virtual Challenge, which was the first, I believe, national competition that was organized. And it really worked out because even the parents said, oh, it can happen. So our children, some of the parents who had multiple children who participated said they were so engaged and they really learned a lot about coding, and they got to meet a lot of friends as well, even in the virtual space. So that really worked out. And what was really fantastic about it is that the Department of Education featured it in all their social media assets. They congratulated all the winners, featured all the winners, and they said, oh, this can be done. So with that, we had the encouragement by the Department of Education to continue to roll out, to continue to train the teachers on the virtual robotics toolkit. And we found out that now we have a community of VRT, even the parents are really happy about it because as you say, students now feel so isolated, and we don't want them to feel depressed. There's also concern about, of course, mental wellness, and I believe the VRT was the solution. It was a way for them to create the robots, to run the robots, to learn coding, and as well as make friends. So until now, we're excited. We're rolling out the robot virtual games. We just finished the sustainable mining, and we're now on the skills challenge for this month of August. So we just finished the month of July for the sustainable mining, and now we're doing a skills challenge. And we're also hosting the regionals, and it will be international this coming November.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, I had no idea that you were involved with so much of that. I'm learning as well. What else can you tell me about homeschooling? Because you mentioned that kids being homeschooled and kids learning remotely is obviously the hot topic this year. Do you think that's here to stay? Do you think that in the future there's going to be more of that, or maybe will there be less of that? What's your take on that?
During pre-pandemic, homeschoolers were, I'll talk about the Philippine setting. Homeschoolers are not really, I would say, acknowledged, or it's like, okay, you do your work or your schoolwork at home. So that's not really the norm. Now, and it takes a different kind of setting to be able to be a homeschool family. And if you notice, some of the homeschoolers, they're not just one child, but it's the whole family. And it really takes a lot of support from specifically the mom or the dad or both parents to have homeschoolers because of the time they have a lot for tutoring and for checking the work of the children. So that was pre-pandemic, and now with what's happening again now with the pandemic ongoing is that the homeschoolers have an advantage because they're so used to remote learning, right? So they now are the ones actually giving tips, giving webinars to the non-homeschoolers on how to cope with their schoolwork from home. So they're now the stars, and they will stay. Definitely homeschoolers will stay. Even I believe in some countries, hybrid education will happen, which means there's still going to be online education as well as face-to-face. And hopefully the face-to-face will happen soon here in the Philippines. I don't know in your country, in Canada, if they've opened the schools.
Yeah, they're opening some schools, and I think that some universities especially are trying to do a hybrid model as well. But it's still very much a work in progress, and yeah, we'll see what it's like in September, right? Yeah, it's so interesting. I believe in your it was either your TED Talk or a different interview. I apologize for not remembering, but you've mentioned the distinction that you make between passion and purpose. I thought this was fascinating. I would really love for you to explain a bit more about that.
Right. Thank you so much for asking that question. Yes, passion is really what fuels you every day. What is my why? Okay, so that is my why. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? And purpose is the output. What now do I do with that passion? And that really is your purpose. So it all connects to all about how you can leave a legacy. My late father, he told me once that always leave your legacy here on earth as well as build your castle in heaven. So that really is always in my mind, that you need to wake up and say, okay, I'm passionate. I'm going to make a difference today. And then what will be that purpose? So I'm going to organize all these robotics competitions, for example, or I'm going to have a webinar, or I'm going to meet with government officials or something. So that is the purpose of my why.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've never heard that explanation or that distinction made by anyone else. So it's a really unique thought and idea. I love it. You are also a leader. Of course, with the business. We've talked a bit about this already, but you mentioned in an interview how you were a woman, one of the first women in the business, and you had to stand out. I think when you first were joining FELTA, you really had to make your mark and really show that you were serious, show that you weren't just, another, person who was filling a spot. You were actually there to make a difference. And one of the qualities I think that you said about yourself was that you were very direct. You said what you meant, you said what was on your mind, and you didn't really beat around the bush. Are there any other traits, characteristics, anything like that you would recommend leaders today use to be more efficient and to lead better besides just being direct? What else can they do to perform better?
Well, I just want to add that I am the first and only woman World Robot Olympiad ambassador. So if you look me up, Google my name. It always comes out as the World Robot Olympiad ambassador. And one time I asked, why me? Why me, right? Why me? And the WRO committee told me that I emulate the kind of, how would you say this, a STEM advocate that will really have an impact in the youth, and not just the youth, but probably everyone in all generations. And I think what drives me as to where I am right now with all the, if you're asking my qualifications or qualities rather, of just not being the WRO, but being the champion of the Geeks and wearing all these many hats, is that I believe that technology, like women in technology, for example, we are a valuable aspect in society if we are given the opportunity to be able to shine and to bring out the best in each and every one of us. I believe it will be a better place. As we say, women hold half the sky. And given the opportunity, I believe, yeah, we will be able to do that. And one of my qualifications, qualities as well that I would like to share is that do not be afraid of the future. What it means is that I've always been fearless with regards to introducing something that other people may say, okay, we're not ready for that, right? We can never be ready unless we try. So the example of which is, as I said, the robotics program, where it was only thought as a movie in 1999. And that's when we started introducing robotics. Imagine that. So it was an uphill climb. I cannot say that it was easy. There were so many challenges, so many mindsets you have to change, but you have to be resilient. You have to be purpose driven. Why am I doing this? Again, at the back of my mind and in my heart, it's always for the kids. And if you have that to back you up, you can never go wrong.
I love that. And speaking of the future, what else do you see coming around the corner in the next few years? What emerging technologies out there are you excited about? Not just for your own company. I know that there's that NDA that you spoke about, but with regards to the entire world, what do you see coming about, and what are you really anticipating next?
Well, I believe that if we follow the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, we have to be able to have a better earth, better future, be kind to Mother Earth. And what will be in the future will be, I hope and I pray that we will be able to have robots that can make our world a safer and cleaner place. I hope that we will also be able to venture out in outer space. In the Philippines, we are now, because only in 2019 was the government able to sign the the law, actually not the law, but an act to start the aeronautics, no, as was it? Yeah, aeronautics education in the Philippines. So I believe that soon we will also have hopefully women astronauts in space. So I believe the space program is the way for us to go to head on to the future. And of course, at the same time, taking care of Mother Earth.
Yes, I'm super excited for all of that as well. I know that we've just scratched the surface. I feel like I could talk to you for hours more, Mylene, but I'll just ask you one more question. If you could get one message out there that would, just by speaking it aloud now, that would travel to everyone on Earth or all the educators, students, whatnot, what would you say to them?
I would say to them, what I would say to them is, do not fear the future because the future is here and now.
I love that.
That's all.
Yeah. No, that's succinct, and I think that really caps off the interview well. Thank you. Are there any social media links that you think you'd like to share? Any websites? Where can people get a hold of you if they'd like to reach you?
They can, if they would like to see all the programs of FELTA Multimedia, you can just log on to www.felta.ph. That's very straightforward. And if you would like to drop an email, sure, it's myleneabiva@yahoo.com. And let's have a conversation. You can find me as well in LinkedIn and in Facebook. I don't have an Instagram. My son said, Mom, you have to have an Instagram. I said, okay, I can't even manage my social media accounts at this moment. So don't add on.